Tamawebte. Good morning, everybody. Weekend Tony. Yahake Koibak. Elintinbak. Yake Kashayabak. Yukaya Nemya Katui Kashai Timat. Yahake Kawai Sat. Kete Kawai Sat. Where the people from Big Valley are here and Robinson's here. We're on their land. So I just told you everybody good morning. My name is Tony and welcome. We're here. I'm from Lower Lake. My family's from there bloodline wise, and then I'm a member of the Lytton Band of Pomos out of Sonoma County, and I was born in Ukiah and raised in Kashaya, Santa Rosa area. But we currently live right here in Lower Lake, and I'll allow my wife to introduce herself.
Samawebte, we hin Rose Steele, Ailembak, Ayokeobak, Kanakama Olebak, Hamne Habenokobak. So hi, good morning, how are you? My name is Rose Steele, I'm also from Elam. And in our language, we actually say that that place owns us. I don't own that place, it owns me. And then I'm from Mendocino County, Yokeo, my mom's tribe. I'm also Hawaiian. And what I shared is my grandmother's from Big Valley, whose land we're on, Habenoko, the Rock people. And so thankful to be here and honor the ancestors that welcomed us and all of you for being here. So thank you.
Yeah, so we were asked to come, and thank you, Sonia, who tends the garden here, a wonderful person, and this is a great thing for the community to have this and offer this to the community. We believe that Acorns, and we're going to be talking about Acorns, but the food from this place is connected. We're connected to the food. And so we're going to talk about the processing of Acorns. Thank you very much for inviting us. We're honored to be here. If you have any questions whatsoever, raise your hand. I'm interactive. I'll answer the best I can. And with that being said, we're going to talk to you about how we process Acorns. There's so many different folks that process Acorns differently. You can go online and Google it and find people that do all kinds of stuff that I wouldn't even think of doing. But I was taught as a young age in Kashaya by the elders, my grandmother, who is not from Kashaya but was married in there. My grandfather was from there. And we grew up gathering the acorns as a young child. And we grew up back in the 60s helping out the elders. There was some elders there that it was a great opportunity to listen to stories. I was just listening to this gentleman tell stories about his grandmother and his life over in Mississippi. And so to hear the stories of the elders and the connection between the land and food and us, it's inspiring. It wasn't at 5, 6, 7, I'll be honest. It was a little boring, but it stuck with me. And when I needed it the most, it was given to me by what I believe the ancestors. And so a lot of what we're going to talk about is things that we've learned before, things that were taught to us by some of our elders, my aunties from Kashaya, but then also things that we've experienced being here gathering acorns. That's how we learn. That's how you learn, is by getting your hands dirty, getting in there and getting it. Just like gardening. You know, it's a beautiful garden here, but if you don't get in the dirt, you're not going to learn how to tend those plants. And so the beautiful part about acorn trees is the only thing you don't have to do to get food from them is cut them down. If you cut your tree down, then you have no more options, right? And so when I see PG&E asking about a property, I'll tell them, oh, it's way over there. So that's the only thing, is that we call it acorns provided by our Creator. Acorns provided by the earth, the land in which we're on. And so we wanted to talk about the processing of it, but also we may mention about why it's important to eat acorns and why is it important for us to recognize the trees in which the area that we're from, why and how it inspires us spiritually, emotionally, physically, and mentally. And so with that, we did bring, as you can see, we have an array of different things that we brought. We just threw a few things together.
This is a few things.
Yeah.
These acorns here that I have in the jar I brought different kinds of acorns. This one is called a blue oak or a mush oak, and it's from Lake County, right in our land in Lower Lake. This is the tan oak, and the tan oak we get from Lake County. There's certain places in Lake County you can get it, but then there's also, this comes from the coast, which is what I grew up on, and it's a very, very oily nut, but it's also tasty. A lot of the elders love this one. This one doesn't, it's a woody taste, but it's a lot easier to work with, the mush oak. Doesn't take very long to...
And it's very forgiving.
Yeah, if you're wanting to learn how to work with acorns, this is the best one. For two reasons. Number one, it's very abundant in Lake County, but then it's also very easy to work with. And if you're trying to make bread, or you want to make cookies, or whatever you want to experiment with other than mush and soup, this is the one to start with. Because it's so abundant here in Lake County. It's everywhere. And so we'll talk about that.
Did you say soup?
Yeah. When we called sha'o in our language means it's a soup. Sha'o is acorn, badu is the acorn, and then in our language, and the language I'm speaking is from Lower Lake, that's my grandmother's language. And so sha'o is the soup. And so when you cook acorn, and a long time ago we used to cook them in the baskets, and there's elders that still cook it that way with the rocks, the lava rocks. They heat the lava rocks, they rinse it, and they put it in the baskets, and it boils, comes to a boil. And when they cook it that way, it's very tasty, very natural in its natural taste, and that's what you want to get. If you start itching, this is why, I'm going to tell you a secret, why the United States hasn't bought into the acorns yet, is because when you start wanting to manufacture it the way they manufacture almonds and peanuts and all those nuts, it doesn't come out the same way. It's got an oil in it that's very bitter. You have to leach it. If you grind it up really fast in a grinder, in a mixer, you could potentially burn it in there, and then it stays bitter. So there's a lot of processes, and I'll share with you how we grind it. But I just wanted to share with you the different types that we brought. The tan oak, which is this is last year's harvest, and this is a tan oak. Tzetzesh we call this, and it's from the coast, and it's this one here. So
that's the yummy one.
That's the yummy one, yeah.
Depending on where you're from.
Oh.
Yeah.
A lot of people, now this is the other one, a lot of people like this one as well. It's very tasty, and that is the black oak, we call it. And we say huya budu in Lower Lake language, huya budu. And huya budu is just trees up above. And so they're the big trees, and it's a black oak. And that's actually the one that I'm processing right now. I have black oak from last year that's been dried, and then I crack them and I peel off the skin, and there's a process to take the skin off and then to clean it, and then I grind it up in the kolol, the pestle. Now over here, if you look over here, I have a high-tech grinder. This is the high-tech grinder. Grandma would laugh at me for using this one, but this is the old-fashioned grinder, they call it. right? And it takes a little work to work this, and it's a lot of muscle and consistency. But this is a great way to grind
And not burn it.
and not burn it.
Did it burn easy?
It does burn very easy if you try to get it really if you try to use a food processor or a blender, and you just try to get every piece, it will burn it. It's not really burning it, but it burns the bitterness into the nut.
Okay.
And then when you cook it, it'll still be bitter. And so when you do it cold, then now there's other people, I've seen people do it and they boil it in the shell. And you know what, quite honestly, I'm not a nutritionist, so I don't know how to boil it in a shell. That's all new to me. There's a lot of things that I don't understand when it comes to that. I just do it the way I was taught. And that's worked well for me.
Yeah.
So
And so I think that the beginning part of it too, though, is in the fall is when we would start gathering the acorns. But throughout the month, we scout out the different areas, because not each tree yields a different time. So it's, you know, just like your garden, it's not going to grow in the same spot every year at the same time. And so part of gathering the acorns is also caretaking. And clearing the area, you know, making sure that the tree is clean and prepared for when it falls.
yeah.
And so that's prior to even coming out. You know, we're always riding around checking to see how they're developing, because we had a water shortage. You know, there wasn't a lot of water the last couple of years, and so it changed our production. So we go and check each of the trees that we gather from. And so that's you know, reminding us that we have to get out there, getting prepared, and then the fall is when they start falling on the ground, right? And so we have to also prepare after that happens to go and gather at our certain spots that we go to, and so there's a whole caretaking. I just want to include that. You know, I think Tony mentioned like of our trees being cut down by PG&E, people that move here and say, oh, this is, you know, great property, I'm going to cut this tree down. And it's a tree that we gather from, and we've gathered from for a long time, for thousands of years. And sometimes it's on private property. And so, you know, we try to work with definitely the tribes to honor those spaces. You know, we're here in this beautiful garden that's protected, right? And our trees aren't protected in a fenced area where someone's taking care of them every day. You know, we have the dance area right here too, beautiful protected place with good intentions. And so when we go out, we carry those same intentions going out and gathering, and we have to be ready. You know, traditionally we take our whole family, everyone, because we need all the hands to gather all the acorns. You're back, you're picking them up, right? And so that's a whole family event that, you know, that we come and gather. And one thing I wanted to share is that you know, there are birds, there are squirrels, they're also gathering too. So we're mindful as we go that they are also gathering. And so so we have some times and protocols that we actually gather our acorns at. And I don't know if you want to talk a little bit about
and
that.
since you said that, here's I picked up a few up from our house, but this is the third acorn that we actually, it was, which one was it? Oh, this was the black. I said this was the black, and this is actually the blue.
Okay.
And so this I picked up from our yard, and if you look at it, it's green. They're still green, and that's how this oak you can pick right off of the tree. Old stories that my grandfather shared, and my grandmother shared, is they would climb up the trees and shake them and knock these things down, and they use sticks and they could knock them down, and the ones that fell they would pick up and put them into baskets, and these work baskets they would fill and then carry them back to the villages. So these right here, the good thing about these, and I wanted to show you one here, as you're picking through them, there's a good one in here I have.
And they stay green the whole season?
No, these will actually turn dark brown. if they're left on the ground for a long time. Now, what these do have is they don't have a lot of oil in it. That's why they're easier to work with. So they'll rot faster. And so what happens? Yeah, mildew. They'll mildew. They'll get mold on them if they're real susceptible to.
That's when you pick them green.
That's why we pick them green. They're fresh. Now you can dry them in the sun. You can dry them, and they'll last a whole year. They'll last a long time in the shell. But the best way to take these and harvest these, which is the one that's more abundant, is to take a knife, cut it in half. Now you can take it out of the nut, or you can look in there and see if there's a worm as well. But you can take it out of the nut or take it out of the shell and let it dry that way. And that's the way that I do these.
As opposed to cracking it. We were cracking earlier?
Now,
the dried?
Now there was one in here, and here it is. There's one in here that I picked up that has a hole in it. And a lot of these may have holes in them, and that means that worm is in there. So when I pick up one that has a hole in it, I give it back to the birds, and the birds don't eat acorns. They eat the worms in the acorns. So they'll pick that up, they'll take it to a tree, and they'll stuff it in the tree, and that's their refrigeration for a while, their cabinet, their pantry, so to speak. But so we want to be mindful that the food we pick up is also other living people's food, or living things' food, animals and birds. So once you cut all those up, you dry them. Your nut has to be dry before you crush them. Before you crush them, they have to be dry. If they're not dry, they're going to cause your machinery to gunk up. It's just not going to be able. You try to do these wet, it's not going to work out. And so once you clean it, and my grandmother always told me, my aunties told me, when you clean these, you winnow them. We call it winnowing, and you take this and so that's taking off the skin. But on the black oak, there's a little vein there. So I take a knife and I cut the vein, and there's a little chunk of the skin inside there. And so then that is clean.
Okay, can I take that?
Yeah. And I'll see that vein in there, I'll cut it, and I'll just take, and this is very tedious work, but you'll like it in the end because you won't have a lot of chunks. Your mush will be creamier. Yes, question.
I found these at home. I just wanted to bring them to you and just say, are these any?
Oh, offering. I love offerings. Offerings. So these are the blue oaks, and these are these ones.
Oh, okay.
But they're of a smaller tree, probably a newer tree.
Well, I don't know.
Or a different
But it
tree.
just fell from our tree. So.
Yeah, these are. If you have these are going to be very tasty.
Oh, good.
Yeah, you're gonna love these if you process those. So, if these
And
are
these are the ones he's cutting, because if you store it in a box, the whole thing will mold. So you have to get them right away and start cutting them or drying them.
These ones you have to dry right away, and you'll see. I learned from the squirrels. The squirrels, the best teachers are the squirrels. They will not eat these right off the bat. You'll see them just laying around, and you'll say, why aren't the squirrels are passing these up and going and getting these? They're not getting any of these, because if they take them into their hole, they'll mold. And once they mold, they're no good to them anymore. So they need the food for the
And
winter.
What are those?
These are the blue oaks. Yeah. And so you take these and you cut it in half, and it's really pretty inside.
So it's the same as the green, but it's
Yeah.
just more mature. What do you say, mature? That's why it's really
It's been sitting on the ground for a little while.
Yeah.
And
Okay.
they get suntan. So if they're sitting in the sun, they're going to get tanned. But you'll notice that some of them get bruised up if they're sitting too long on the ground.
Or if they fell early too.
Yeah, if they fell early. And so when you cut them, you'll be able to look inside and you'll be able to see if there's any worms or anything like that. So if there are, once you cut one and there are worms, I just cut it off. There's no worm there, but I cut off the ends anyway. And then
it
you
helps
have it,
take out the shell.
and it helps take it out of the shell, but they're perfectly fine. Because you're going to process them, you're going to grind them up, and then you're going to leach them. And when you leach them, you're taking out all the oils and all of any bacteria or anything. You're cleaning them. And then you're going to take that, what we call paste or mush, and you're going to, the powder, and then you're going to boil it. So once you boil it, you know what happens when you boil something, it cleans it. And so that's a part of it. Any questions about the different types of acorns? No? Yes.
I've seen the acorns where they have that little thing on top, you know.
Uh-huh.
They have like a shell on them. And they're just beautiful, but are those good to eat too?
Yeah, they're good to eat, but there's different, depends on who you talk to, right? There's different reasons why they still have their head on. They're
cap.
They're cap. They call them their cap. And so there's old stories that tree didn't like that one, so he took his hat and sent him on his way. And the reason he sent him on his way because he was wormy, a little heavy, threw him off. The tree just took him off. Sometimes the wind will blow an acorn and it'll blow the hat with it. An ideal acorn is when it falls and there's no hat. But if I see one, I'll see one with a hat and I'll twist it, and if it comes off easy, it's good to go. It's in my basket. So thank you for that question.
Good question.
That was a good question. Another question. You had a question here? She's writing now. You had a question?
No.
Oh, I see you raise your hand.
Oh, it's probably just my hand hurts, so I lifted
Oh.
it.
Oh,
Sorry.
okay.
He had a question.
Sorry.
Yeah.
So, when do acorns start falling? And when they're falling early, is that a sign of something of weather, or what does that all that mean?
Yeah, that's
We've
a
heard
great
so many
question.
different
There's
versions of it.
years ago, you could predict when the acorns were going to fall. Because the seasons were defined a little more naturally. Now, all the seasons kind of pushed together, and with the fires and the droughts and the cutting of the trees, we noticed that when they cut trees around our place, our big acorn tree is sad. And it doesn't produce. It hasn't produced for 2 years, and so we're thinking that it could be the drought. It could be the tree can feel what's going on. It could be the heat. It could be a lot of different things, and so that's why we go and we offer acorns. All of our first acorns we offer back to the tree. All of our prayers we offer back to the tree. And it's just something that we do. And we've noticed that in a cycle, different trees will produce different years, depending on the type of nut and depending on where it's at in the climate.
It seems like some years they take a rest. Like
Mhm.
they usually produce on, and then there's a year or two they'll just take a rest and not produce.
Yeah, that's exactly right. And so that's why it's so important, like Rose was saying, it's so important to have different locations that you take care of. And one of these that I'm going to talk a little bit about, a long time ago, on our end of the lake, each family had their own acorn tract. And that's how you divided territory. Is we would take, for example, this is our acorn tract, our family here, and we would go and take those acorns and clean the trees and make sure that if there was fire, we had to take care of it. We would do underbrush burning to make sure that the fires that came, there's always going to be fires. Doesn't matter if you have a million houses or one house, there's going to be fires. And so you have to make sure that your acorn trees are kept clean, that the underbrush is taken care of, and we would take care of that as a family. That's our acorn tract. And so what happens if our trees don't produce acorns? We would have to go to someone else's acorn tract. You better have something to trade. You better have some goods to, and that did happen sometimes. But the acorn tracts were so large and so long, abundant that maybe right here we couldn't get acorns, but we could travel 10 miles that way and we could get acorns. There was always acorns abundant. It just every year it depended on the production of the acorns in your area. And those are just little things that we know. And so we shared that with you all today. We haven't talked a lot about those things, and so consider that and read on it and find out about. But thank you for that. Thank you for the input. I've learned more from my elders than I have trial and error. And so the teachings that's passed down from generation to generation are more valuable to me than my own trial and error. But I have learned a lot from trial and error. My auntie told me, go and do it. And when it doesn't come out good, go and do it again. And I've learned that if it comes out a little bitter, that I eat it. I eat it.
And it's not poisonous at all?
Oh, good question. Yeah. So I get this question a lot is, so what acorns can I eat? Are there any acorns that you can't eat? And the answer is no. There's not one acorn that you can't eat. All acorns are edible. Some acorns are easier to process than others. Some acorns are more abundant than others. Some acorns are tastier than others, depending on your palate. And but all acorns are edible. The process, and let's talk about that. Once it's ground and it's all dried and it's all skinned and then it's ground in the grinder.
You have some flour in there too.
I do have flour. Here's some flour. Whenever I'm done grinding, I'll clean out the grinder or I'll clean out the mortar, and I'll put it in my jar. So I want y'all to take a whiff of that. Now that's a mixture of different acorns. It's not one acorn.
And do they use the valley oak?
You can use the valley oak. It's very abundant, but the birds don't like it. So if the birds don't like it,
And we come from the birds.
yeah, that tells you something. The deers don't like it. The only ones that like it are the wild hogs from over in Europe. They love that stuff. But there's not a lot of wild hogs around here.
So that smell, the beautiful thing of that smell is that's how our kitchen smells when we're preparing this, when we're grinding, and when the flour it's going. We kind of do a little final sifter, to make sure that there's no chunks in it, and you could smell that aroma, right? It's very invigorating, and so on the monitor here.
So I have a bigger one, but this is the one I used to crack acorns. We didn't bring everything. So I have a bigger one, but you take this and you work, and this one is the best way to do the acorn, because you could talk all day and still do it.
As a community, we would sit together and ground the acorn.
Yeah.
So it wasn't one person, it was, you know, any type of gathering function you're having in community. So it's not one person's doing all the work.
Yeah. And you'll see mortars in big rocks. And have you seen a mortar in a big rock, like in the middle of the rock? Are there little ones around it? Why do you suppose there are little ones around it? So you'd have some family members cracking the acorns in the little mortar, a little indentation in the rock, and then they take the nut and then they would throw it to the hopper, and then you'd have the elder over there or someone else
My
crushing
mother
that.
would say when the holes got deep like that they were like worn out.
Yeah.
Start another one.
Yeah, these are worn out. So you'll find these in the backyard and stuff turned over. And these are called, this is called the mobile order. What do they call it? Acorn Dash? DoorDash. So you could carry this, you could basically carry this. It's a little heavy, but you can carry this with you out there in the field. And so you crack, once you get the acorn into a flour, then you transfer it. And in the old days, they used to make a bed near a river or a stream or the lake, and they'd make a bed of sand, press it down, or a rock, different ways. Each family had their own way depending on where they're at, what type of water was nearby, what type of dirt was nearby, if there was sand available. So then they would cover it with pine needles, and then they would pour water, fresh, clean spring lake water, over that acorn mush. And then it would leach all of the bitterness out. And so nowadays, if you tell me where a clean spring water is, I'll go there and leach my acorns in the dirt. But it's really, really rare to find a stream. Our lake is contaminated. It's very rare. And so I did learn the hard way of never leaching my acorn mush with faucet water. There's so many chemicals in my faucet water in Lower Lake. It makes the acorn mush taste almost like, I don't know, Funyuns. I don't know.
Metally. I think it's metally.
Yeah, metally.
You taste the metal in it.
You can taste it. Like you could taste the acorn. It does. Acorn mush loves to be in its natural state, in natural water, fresh spring water. We leach with a cloth that's made of cotton and non unbleached. We whittle them with natural baskets, or I'll put them on a screen here. This is also a screen that I dry them or use them. I traded this screen it was an Elders, and it was given to a friend of mine, my cousin, and I traded him a motorcycle for this. That's how valuable this piece is to me. And
Similar to the basket.
Similar to the baskets.
Somebody made.
And so, so this is, I don't know how we say colander in our language, but it's a screen colander. And I put it in. Now I could take this, I actually have done it. I could take this. If you're gonna do a lot of acorn mush for a big feast, you could actually take this off and transfer it over to this, and then spread it out. And then I have these little clips here that I clip on. And just for the purpose of showing you, I'm gonna just clip the four corners. Now, if you notice on my towel, it's discolored on the ends. The tannic acid that's in acorns will dye any material. It's very strong. Our people used to take that tanning acid, the tanning oils that used to drip underneath, take that and put it into baskets and then dye clothes with it. And with different berries, you can dye it. You could dye. Here's some that came over from on the truck. And you could tell that this is very clean now.
Oh, yeah.
It's
This
a lot
is what day
cleaner.
are we on? We're in 4 days.
No, this is
3
like
days?
3 days, yeah.
So this is a 3-day process that you're looking at.
And so that, so now how you tell, you can taste the,
Oh, you could actually taste the.
yeah, you get,
Oh,
that's very watery. So this is almost done. It's actually probably pretty done. So I would take a little piece. Yeah, that's pretty done. That's really good. And so, should I leach?
Oh, you want to leach? Yeah.
So what kind of acorns are that?
Oh, this is the black oak. This is actually part of the process that I've done from these.
And this is from last year.
Yeah, these acorns are from last year.
So are you using filtered water?
This is Alhambra filtered water. Clean. My wife goes up to the mountain and gets the spring water too. So
Up in Middletown?
so I just put a little bit in, and then I use a whisk. We like to use everything, like I said, natural, so wood, as much as possible.
if you want to come up and look at what he's doing.
Yeah,
Go-
come on
go
up,
ahead
take a
and-
look.
Because they can see the water coming off the
Right.
bottom, but
Can't
you
really-
get to see the process of
So I mix this up into the soup,
bleaching.
and it's cleaning out the acorn.
So when you're making your flour or whatever, do you do it in small batches or do you do like the whole process? at one
No,
time?
yeah, depending on what it's for, because we can't really keep it for a long time. So if we were gonna have you, eat some, we would have started this process Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and then we would start cooking it. So we weren't set up to do this, and so if we were gonna teach how to do this and cook it, we would have 2 batches. And so we don't make, because it's just me and him, we don't make like a huge quantity. But when we have our ceremonies, which we have in October, then we will make more, but not like at the beginning of the month, a batch. We make it fresh, because you can taste the freshness when we put it on our dinner table.
Okay, so you just keep them dried and stored when
Dried and
taken.
stored, yeah, dried and stored. Not the flour, not so much until we're ready to. If we have flour, we're gonna start leaching it.
And there's a lot of people that I haven't really explored the idea, but I hear a lot of people can take it and freeze it. You could dry freeze it. You could, once it's all leached, you could scrape it and dry it, and then make freeze dry it, and then use it at a later date. So there's a lot of things you can experiment with. The important thing I think to remember is that. What we remember is that we make it for a specific thing. We make it for our food every day. This is actually one because we weren't aware we were going to come.
Yeah, we didn't know
were
this
actually
would-
surprised. But this is actually for us.
Yeah.
Like we were preparing this for us, and I enjoy eating acorn. I was on the keto diet, and acorns are off the list.
Whoa.
Right? And I was on this metabolic something or other research diet, and acorns are off the list. right? Don't mess with acorns. It's too much carbohydrates. So I started an eating plan that was related to my traditional way of eating. As October of last year, Acorns was on the list. So I was so excited, and I have released almost 100 pounds
Wow.
from being able to enjoy my traditional foods, the process of making that traditional food, eating the traditional food, and then supplying it for our ceremonies and some of the
It's hard to gather if we're not in good health.
Right.
It's hard to get out there. It's hard to process it. The beauty of what, like Tony's sharing, is that getting this ready, we put our prayers and our intentions for the people that it's going to feed, and also for the ancestors, as we prepare this food. And so it's very mindful that we're preparing it days ahead, that we're going to see people, we're going to share food, we're going to have ceremony together. And so that's the beauty of it. We do, in the winter, we'll make some for the elders. I like to give this to pregnant women, breastfeeding women, people that are sick. And so we'll do like a little jar, and give it. And part of our naming ceremonies for our children, this is the first food besides breast milk that they will eat, is the acorn mush. And so our young children are saying, Auntie, Uncle, when are you going to make more sho'o? And so that's amazing. That's that generation coming back and restoring those ceremonies, and they're wanting it, craving it. And then there's elders that say, oh, I didn't like that when I was little. I didn't like it. It was bitter. I didn't really care for it. And so we say, well, try it again. Take a healthy risk and try it. And they taste it, and they remember their grandmother, and they remember their grandfathers. And it's very emotional, because this is our ancestral food. This is what kept us here this long. And so we like to honor it when we ground it, good words, not talking about nobody and who should be doing what. We're having good fellowship as we're making this. And so that's what you taste, is those prayers, is that love for the people, for all people, for this land, And so that's the beautiful connection to have this. I'd love to have a wick with acorn mush. Like that's my dream, to have wick and give it to our pregnant mothers and our breastfeeding mothers and our little children, because that's the food prior to diabetes and hypertension that we had, and we were in good health.
And,
so I love doing this at the garden.
Yeah.
and that's just the emotional and spiritual well-being of acorn mush. But the nutritional facts is it's great for your body. My A1C is 5.1.
Wow, that's awesome.
And
Wonderful.
my blood pressure is 117 over 63.
Wow.
112 over 63. So I've really improved my health just by eating the right foods, eating vegetables, and eating acorn mush and eating salmon. I eat salmon twice a week at least, but twice a week it helps our brains as well as our heart. And so oily salmon fish twice a week.
And then the seaweed we gather.
We gather
at the ocean,
seaweed.
we
I
gather
noticed I
seaweed.
see some seaweed in our basket.
Yeah, we had some little pieces in here. I
Yeah.
offered it to the garden here.
Yeah, but we eat seaweed, and that's our iodine, our natural salt. And there's also the process of going and taking the kids and gathering, and our nonprofit Kanokatai Native Wellness does that. We sponsor families to go there and gather and
teach
learn
the protocol.
and teach the protocol when we go to someone else's area to ask permission. And so the same goes with acorn trees here in our area. We always ask the landowners, that are taking care of those lands, can we go and gather the acorns? And so we have people now that bring us bags of acorns. Here, this is off my land. And so we appreciate that.
Yeah, at the Middletown Art Center, we're doing a project weaving bridges, weaving baskets. And so part of that is if you own land, how to naturally take care of the land and allow us to gather the willow, the redbud, acorn. We use the oak too for the rims of our baby baskets. And so, as we don't just take it because we've been here for 22,000 years. We go gather with prayer and thank the people who are taking care of the land. And so, and not, people move from all over and have no idea and just want to clear it out. And so we, with that program, we're sharing weaving with the whole community. And I guess it's part of building allies so that we're all aware of the responsibility and the education of how we take care of everyone. And you don't learn this in school. You don't learn, what Tony's talking about, his grandma, your grandma, we were talking about, like, these are our teachers that teach us at home, and then we go to school to memorize something else about someone else's experience. And so we have to bridge those two together. As I'm responsible for what my grandmother taught me to teach my children, my grandchildren. And so as we do this stuff, we remember those teachings that I might have forgot at 5 when I touched these acorns. I think of my grandma. My grandma had an elder that would bring her acorns, that she didn't go out and gather them at a certain age. And so that's something that we try to do when we go places, to bring that gift to the people that aren't able to get out there, that aren't able to get into the coast and into the water and gather seaweed. And so that's a part of that, that it's not ours to keep. The knowledge isn't just ours to keep, but it's ours to educate, so we do it in a right way with good intentions.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So I had a question
Wonderful.
for you all. Does anybody process acorns, or do you have a story about acorns? Or did someone tell you something or share that maybe you'd like to share with us? Yes.
Well,
Brooke hand.
anyway, yes, I think I'm positive that when the acorns come down, when they're very heavy, something certain happens with the world, the weather, and when they're not. Like, okay, one summer I wore a helmet with my bikini all summer because the guy next door got bombarded with acorns and it made his head bloody, right? So, I mean, they were just coming down. It was unusual, and I had 11 trees around my place in Middletown. And anyway, yeah. So what do you think about the weather and acorns and all that? Do you notice all the difference? Like when that lot come down, that means it's gonna be a drought or something.
Yeah. So there's a lot of different. I'm glad you shared that. I have studied to be a fitness trainer, a wellness coach, a health coach, nutrition. Like, I'm studying all of these beautiful things. You go to college and you learn about, you get your master's degree in nutrition or what have you. And it's all evidence-based, right? It's very important that it's evidence-based, the society tells you. But then for 20,000 years, people have been surviving off of the land and with no evidence-based, nothing written in a book that can prove that that these things happen or that these things are good for you. And so the only thing I can tell you is I know when it's time to go get seaweed in the ocean by the trees over here.
And what is that?
I can't tell you, otherwise it'd be
Oh.
giving you my secret.
You can tell her in language.
I can tell you in language.
What's that look like?
So let me share with you. I'll share with you, as long as you don't tell anybody else.
Oh no, she's not.
So
Oh, she's not.
so there's an elder. She's passed on and traveled to the spirit world, but she would have a dinner. Their roundhouse down in Cortina was in the ground, and the roundhouse ended up falling in, and they didn't have roundhouse anymore. But she was one of the cooks, and she would have a dinner every season, and every time it was necessary to have a dinner to honor the ancestors of that place and her people. They still continue that tradition now, even though she has gone on. But she would, I learned this from her because she does acorns, and she talked a lot about this acorn. And actually this was hers. So I'm honored to tell this story, but she told me that the trees talk to us, and the trees tell us when they're going to have a great year, when they're not going to have a great year, and the trees also tell me, because my bloodline comes from the coast as well, they tell me when the seaweed's ready by their buds. When they start budding out in March, late March, early April, they'll bud, and you'll see that first little bud, and I know that it's getting ready to and I'll drive out to the ocean and check, or I'll call one of my cousins who lives out there. And you know, Facebook is great, checking the tides are great. You could do all of that, but there's low tides all year long, right? So you could check the tide all you want to figure out when you're going to go out there, but the trees and the ocean will kind of let you know when it's time to go there. The seaweed is long enough, it's going to grow back in a few weeks. Like it talks to you. These trees kind of tell me, and I apologize, but that's not evidence-based. Kind of, little bit. Huh?
Yeah, kind of, because you know they have a farmer's almanac, and you don't set a fence post any old time. You do it when the almanac tells you, otherwise they'll never set.
Yeah, yeah, and I'm glad you said that, because we didn't have almanacs or books thousands of years ago. We had to go off of what our environment told us. And so when we're in connection with our environment, with the plants, with the animals, with the water, with the sun, with the trees and the birds, then we begin to understand instinctively when to put the tree post in, when to put the post in, because we understand that. And when you become one with that, that is priceless and it's precious. So that's the connection that we want to help and we want to teach with. When we share these things, we want you all to go out there and produce your acorn mush, but also to understand that when you eat that acorn mush, you're beginning to understand, just like our babies, we said, you know, Rosie shared that that's the first food. The reason that we give babies the first food, acorn mush, is so that they'll never ever forget where they're from and who they are. And the trees talk to them and tell them. So that's, I don't know how we're doing on time, but
Oh, we're right there, huh?
Yeah, we're right there.
So this is a continued effort. Just know that. You know, prior to me and Tony getting married, I didn't make Acorn, and so now I'm, you know, as a partnership and encouragement, you know, in a good intentions and good prayers and in a good way, you know, I've learned how to cook the mush, and you know, and I'm very proud when I set it on our table. My prayers are to make a basket that it goes in, that it'll hold it, because right now I just have the metal and you know, the wooden spoons. I actually have a beautiful wooden bowl we set it in, and so it takes that good intention, you know, to connect with your creator God, to make it in that way. And so I would, you know, want to share that as we continue. You know, we're going to have some samples at the walk in Robinson, I think it's
Walk to Wellness.
Walk to Wellness, November 22nd. And so we'll have 22nd, right? We'll have samples there of each of these. So that's something we're preparing for, and we'll have some more. So anytime you see us, you know, any questions. But you know, I learned how to garden and I had a great idea, but I was sitting in my house the whole time thinking about it. And you have to get out there, right, and plan and get everything prepared. And so that's the same process that, you know, we gather our acorns with, is getting out there and setting those intentions and those prayers to do it in the best way possible. And so, you know, we, like I said, there's some of the nuts, you know, you look at, all these have stories, and so, you know, next time we see you, we'd love to hear your story of gathering and how we can help.
Yeah, and acorn gathering is really, really great exercise to get out and move and stretch your neck and stretch your muscles, your glutes and your hamstrings, and
Get in shape before you start.
yeah, you can really get down there, and so it's a healthy thing, and
For your family.
for your family to get out there together and do it. and we love it, and we're going to continue doing it and teaching it, and we're honored that you were here.
Yeah.
And just to share that this is our way. This is the things we've learned along the way, and another family, even in our own tribes or our own villages, may do it differently. And so each family was taught a different way. There's some people that won't eat acorn mush if it's cooked in a pot.
There's some glasses down there.
Oh my! Oh, that's someone else's glasses.
Oh, that's
Those
mine.
Oh, I didn't want you to
Actually,
step on it.
Good eye.
I'm like,
Yeah.
you're gonna step on it.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Good
Thank you.
eye.
Yeah,
Oh.
and so some people
No, he didn't.
they
Didn't
cook
like.
it in a basket, and that's the only way they'll eat it. And I respect that. That's honorable. I want this to keep going. I see the nutritional value in it, and learning. And like Rosie said, you know, we don't have a basket. We have a basket in which to cook it in, but we don't want to burn that basket.
Yeah.
And so we until she makes that basket, or our grandchild makes that basket, then that will come back into the family. So we're just continuing to learn, continuing to talk about the importance of acorns, and continuing to talk about the importance of our relationship with the environment, with our land and our trees. So thank you all for coming. Appreciate talking with you. Thank you for your input and your wisdom. And I could tell that you all are very interested, and I appreciate that. So Acorn on, and come on out to our event. And whenever you see acorns out there, think of the people that are from here.
And Badu. Badu
Badu.
is how we say it.
Yeah, all
Badu.
across we say Badu.
Badu.
Badu. And but the sho'o is different in different stages of it. There's sho'o, and then like the coast we say jo'o, and then there's other people that say
Nupa.
nupa. There's all different words for acorn mush or acorn soup. So thank you for coming, and thank you for allowing us to be here.
Thank you.
Thank you.